I have something to share with you. First of all, I want to ask you a question. Raise your hand if you have a super cool, super unique, super awesome brain. Raise your hand. Yes! Look at all those hands raised. So I wrote this book because I started learning about my amazingly wired brain. And we all have brains that are wired a little bit differently. But what I'm going to share with you today is there's actually a name for this certain type of brain that thinks and acts and kind of behaves a little bit differently. And so we get to learn a little bit more about this type of thinking. And this is something that I was told that I had when I was 10 years old. And it's something that some of my kiddos were told that they have too. And some of you might be able to relate to this as well. And so I want you to listen up. We're going to maybe stop between pages and talk a little bit more about what we're reading about and this character inside of the story that honestly, a little bit of a hint, she's a lot like me when I was little. So without further ado, let's get started. So my book is called Hi, It's Me. I have, can everybody say it together? ADHD. That's right. I'm the author. And then my brother, J. Charles Friedel, is the illustrator. So that's kind of fun too. Raise your hand if you know anything about ADHD or if you have it or know somebody who has it. All right, let's get started so that we can learn more together.
Let me find a way to shut this off.
Okay. What is ADHD? A stands for attention, D stands for deficit, H stands for hyperactive, and D stands for disorder. I'm not a huge fan of those words, so let's look a little bit deeper to see if we can understand them a little bit more. But I like to think A stands for adventurous, D stands for determined, H stands for hyperfocused, and D stands for dreamer, because we like to lead with our strengths as we navigate through our struggles. Sometimes my feelings go up and down. That's when my head spins round and round. Do you ever feel that way? Sometimes I think real fast, and then I think real slow. I feel like at times I'm just going to blow. Do you ever go like from 0 to 100 with your feelings? I know I do. Sometimes I feel happy. Sometimes I feel sad. Sometimes I feel jumpy. At times I feel mad. It's like a roller coaster of emotions sometimes, right? Sometimes I can't relax or even go to bed. I really wish those grown-ups could see inside my head. Do you ever feel like that at night? You just feel so restless, it's hard to go to sleep. Sometimes my mind, it runs so fast, I can't remember what happened last. That's something I struggle with. I'll go into a room and I'm like, why did I walk in here? Sometimes I get the jitters when sitting in my seat. I have to ask my teacher to repeat, say it with me, repeat. All my kiddos that are sitting there listening in the classroom, do you feel like that sometimes? It's hard to focus sometimes, isn't it? But you guys have fabulous teachers that help you along the way. Sometimes I tell a grown-up just exactly how I feel. It helps to know I'm not alone and what I feel is real. Everybody say, I'm not alone in how I think and feel. I know I can't hear you, but I know you're saying it on the other side of the screen. Sometimes I have my pencil. It's right inside my desk, but then I just can't find it because my desk is such a mess. Is it hard to stay organized sometimes? I know it is for me. Here's a tip. It's really great to have a home for your things. So if you have a special place for each of your things, it makes it a little bit easier to keep track of them. Sometimes I need to take a breath or even count to 5. That helps me to keep my cool and really feel alive. Breathing can be such a powerful tool. I want everybody to put your finger in the air We're going to do box breathing together. Ready? We're going to breathe in, breathe out. We're going to make a box. Breathe in, breathe out. There's lots of different types of breathing you can practice. There's another one called snake breathing. Can everyone say, breathe out like a snake? Go. Put your hand on your tummy and breathe in. Breathe out like a snake. And breathe in. Very good. Does everybody feel a little bit more calm? Sometimes I need to fidget or play with my favorite toy. This helps me to stay focused and feel a lot of joy. Sometimes you guys might have some fidget pins in your classroom. Those fidgets, if they're helpful to your brain, they will help you focus and stay on task. If they become a distraction, we want to put them away. Sometimes I have felt lonely or different as I've grown. Then I see other kids like me and know I'm not alone. Everyone look at the person next to you and say, you are not alone. We are never alone in how we think and feel. Sometimes having these feelings is a wonderful thing, you know. I use my extra energy to run and learn and grow. All that extra energy can be super helpful sometimes too. Sometimes I grow in knowledge. Sometimes I grow in skill. Someday I'll go to college and that will be a thrill. Do you guys have dreams of going and doing things either in college or maybe you want to have a different job one day? You are capable of anything with the brilliant brain you've been given. Sometimes I want to be a scientist, a dancer, or a teacher. Other times I just want to be some silly kind of creature. Do you ever feel like that? Sometimes you're like, I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up. And other times you're like, I'm going to be a dinosaur. It's fun to be silly and creative sometimes. Sometimes my mind is busy with ideas, thoughts, and things. That's the gift of being creative for when I spread my wings. Each one of you have a brilliantly creative mind. If you've read my story and you have these feelings too, remember that you're not alone and you are blessed to be you. Thank you so much for listening. And in the back of my book, there are tips from the author, either for you, those of you that might have these busy brains, or I even have a parent or teacher notes to share. This would be something you would share with your teacher or your parent to help them understand the brain a little bit better, this unique mind a little bit better. So yeah. And then as you can see, do you see these pages in the back of my book? Do you see these? How are you feeling? These you can find on my website. You can print these out. Teachers, if you guys wanted to go do this a different day too, you can print these out and talk about how you're feeling and use this as the follow-up activity to this book. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you have any questions. Check out my book if you want to add it to your library or share it with a friend. I would love that. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Mwah.
We invite everybody to come off mute and say hi to Katelyn if the classes want to show Katelyn their noise. You could clap, you could say hi. I'm sure she would love to hear you.
Yes, I would love to hear you. And if we have any questions, I'm happy to take a few questions too. Ms. Cardis, does your class have any questions, or Ms. Wilson?
Yes, we have some questions. Am I right?
Yeah.
Why did you want to become an author?
She said, why did you want to become an author?
That's a great question. Well, so a backstory to this book is I wrote this book in college for an assignment. And my college professor she ran down the aisle and she was like, you need to publish this book. And to be honest, at first I felt scared and I felt like I might not be good enough to be an author. But then through my journey of learning and growing and developing confidence in who I was like, you know what? If this book helps even just one child or one parent or one teacher help understand this unique mind, it's worth the whole process. So it was a journey to get to publishing my book, but the reason I did it was in hopes of helping others. Anybody else?
We have a question. We have a question, Katelyn.
We have a question after then too.
Okay.
What's your question?
What do you want to be an illustrator?
Oh, why did your brother help you to be the illustrator of the book?
That is a great question. Well, my brother has a super awesome gift of art, right? Isn't he an amazing artist? So this is my brother, if you guys want to see him. It's kind of fun to put a face in it. So there's my brother. He's my baby brother, but he is really, really talented at art, isn't he? Let's give a round of applause for this art. Isn't that awesome art? That's some awesome, awesome art. So I wanted to pour into him and celebrate his talent by putting his art in my book. Anybody else? These are great questions.
We have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
What inspired you to make the book?
What inspired me? Oh, I love that word, inspired. Well, honestly, what inspired me to make the book is that I struggled when I was younger with understanding how my brain was working and what it meant to have ADHD. And so because I was struggling, I don't want other kids to struggle. And so that inspired me to take the steps of publishing this book so that I'm hoping that kids will feel inspired to understand how their brain's working a little bit better so that they can respond better to it and that they can find tools and strategies that are helpful for their struggles and celebrate their strengths.
Thank you.
You're welcome, bud. Thanks for asking. Thank you, Kathleen. I just got a compliment in the chat box. I really appreciate that.
How many books have you written?
That's a good question too. This is actually my one and only book so far. I have a book that I'm working on. You guys are one of the first to hear about it, but I'm working on a book called Hi, It's Me, I Have Anxiety. Does anybody else feel anxious sometimes? Yeah. So that's a book that I'm working on next. So my dream is to have kind of a series of Hi, It's Me books to help people understand how they're thinking and feeling a little bit more. Anybody else?
You want to come up here? You're going to come up, ask a question so she can see you.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, come up here.
How did you think of it?
How did I think of it? Well, and that's one of the gifts of having ADHD is I believe that I have this creative mind that came up with
And that's
these
probably
rhymes.
it then, no more than after.
I came up with these rhymes to help simplify, because sometimes it's confusing how we think and feel, right? It's kind of, it's hard to explain it. And so I came up with it because I wanted to use my gift of creativity and my gift of rhyming, because I love to rhyme all the time. And then, so I used that to come up with the pages in the book to make it simple, but have a big impact in terms of the message.
Thank
Is that helpful, bud? Yeah, you're welcome.
How many books are you planning to make?
It's a good question. We're going to just see. I'm going to take it one book at a time and see. I do have some dreams of potentially one day, who loves to read graphic novels? Graphic novels are so fun, aren't they? So, and I know that a lot of kids with ADHD and other uniquely wired minds, we gravitate towards graphic novels because our brains love the entertainment of them, because they go from, one box to another, they give us visuals, and so it provides all that. So I have this dream of creating this graphic novel book specifically speaking to kids with ADHD and other uniquely wired minds.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
When did you know you had ADHD?
Well, I found out I had it when I was 10. I found out that I went to the doctor. I went to the psychologist, and I had lots of tests done, and my parents were telling me that I had it, and they gave me as much information as they could, but at the time,
Probably going to be done, guys, after her.
this is a long time ago, because I'm going to be 40 this year. So this was a long, long time ago. So they didn't know as much about ADHD as they do now. And so I found out that I had it, but I didn't really know what it meant, because there's lots of layers to having ADHD.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
Let other classes go.
We have a question. Ellie, did you have a question?
Yeah. What was your favorite book that you read?
He said, what was your favorite book that you read as a kid?
Ooh, these are getting harder. Oh gosh, that's a good question. Honestly, reading was a big struggle. Reading was a big struggle for me growing up. It was something that I really battled with, in finding what I really, really enjoyed reading as a kid, because I had a hard time focusing on the book and staying engaged in the book. And so that's actually why I became a reading specialist, because I didn't want other kids to struggle with that comprehension like I did. And so that's kind of a sensitive subject, because I don't even know if I can pinpoint a book that I found as a child. But it's interesting, because now as an adult, I think, wow, I would love this series. Like, I would love, the Captain Underpants series, or the Judy Moody books, or there's like different series books that my kids will read. And I'm like, oh, I could see myself really loving this now that I understand how my brain works and how I can best enjoy a book. Yeah. Does that help? Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Cardis, did you have any kiddos that had questions?
I answered most of the questions for them because they were already talked about in your presentation. So we're good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? We have time for a few more questions.
We have another one. Carter?
How did it come up with the book?
How did I come up with the book?
Yeah.
Well, remember how I said that I have ADHD, and I actually am a teacher. I'm an educator. I taught for 7 years as an early childhood special education teacher. And so I would teach kids with unique minds. I had it. I eventually had my own kids who have these unique minds. And so I thought, what better way to share this with other kids than to publish a book about it? Ms. Budke, did he want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. I was previewing the questions really quick.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jacob.
My question is that how old were you when you made? No, wait, not that.
Okay.
How did you ever thought of making this book, and why did you want your brother to join in this?
Those are good questions. And you know what, I think this is the time I want to kind of add to what I've already said about creating this book. I sat on this book for 10 years. I had this book. Do you see behind me? Do you see this right here? So this was my original, the one I wrote in college. It's very simple, it had the words, but not all the pictures that I have in this book. And I waited and I sat on it, and one thing I struggle with ADHD is there's something called imposter syndrome. That's a big word, but it's almost like when something creeps in your head that says, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough to do that. You're not smart enough to do that. And those were lies that stayed in my head for a really long time. And it kept me from publishing this. But the more I learned about my brain and the more I learned about those thoughts that were living in my head that were a lie, and I needed to move those over and leave room for the truth, which was that absolutely I should publish this because it's something that kids can be helpful for others. And so I invited these new encouraging growth thoughts. I know you guys talk about growth mindset, and all of a sudden I changed my thinking about it, and I was like, I need to publish this. So 10 years after I made it, I published it. Pretty cool, huh?
Could you just tell us like what date you published it again?
Oh, is that what you're? Yeah.
I have ADHD.
I have to look. So it was about 2 years ago.
Thank you.
I have ADHD too.
You do?
Yeah.
You have a brilliant brain. High five. Thanks for asking, bud.
One of my kids was wondering how long it took to publish the book.
That's a great question, actually, because sometimes when I started, I was thinking, oh, I'll just publish it. And then it's not going to take, it took 9 months. It took 9 months because I had to find somebody to edit it. I had to find somebody, my brother had to finish the drawings. And we had to go through this whole process of, I had to send in 1 page at a time. And so we had to kind of fine tune it before it could get published. And it took about 9 months for the whole process. Anybody else? I love being here with you guys. This is so fun. I should do this. Thank you.